Hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hmm. All right, we're back. Not against our will, but maybe, maybe somebody's against their will. But we're back as a team. Hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully the energy is up, but hopefully it cranks up.
Yeah, I mean, whatever it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So, how are you?
I mean, I'm doing good. I think I'm just making sure that continuing down this path. That's the main thing. Like trying to be conscious and intentional about continuing down the path that we know we're supposed to be on. And I say we because, obviously I'm just thinking about it as a collective effort, not just from this podcast standpoint, but even as a leader, if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, I feel like I'm costing others.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
you know, you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
But yeah. But I feel good, essentially. Feel like I'm able,
Mm-hmm.
more than able, more than capable, I should say. And I'm ready. So just trying to get better and be more consistent or be consistent first and then most consistent one day. But
Interesting.
yeah. How you
Okay.
feel?
Uh, I feel blessed. It's nothing really to complain about. Um, I'm really just trying to just not think about certain put too much thought into certain things anymore and just more so do the things that I already know and just put into practice some of the ways in which I know I want to operate
Yeah.
instead of just thinking about how intentional I have to be. Like, if I could just do it and it just be second nature so that in every literal moment, I'm not having to, I guess, force myself or remind myself to be like a certain way.
Yeah.
Um, that would be a really big change. So, yeah. Other than that, like I said, blessed and I'm good.
Good. Keep drinking that water, being healthy. But in all seriousness, um, yeah, that is really good. And I mean, I think what you're saying is necessary in order for anybody to just continue to improve and continue to walk in their destiny, their God given destiny. Like to just not overthink things or to not, um, make it harder than it has to be in essence. Like, but when you make it maybe more than what you are supposed to by maybe taking too long or doubting or not saying that that's the case for you, but no, then definitely we can prolong the process. I think I'm speaking for myself, but basically that's the same kind of thing. I'm trying not to like. I mean, if it's supposed to be done, then it's supposed to be done. I need to just do it. I don't know.
Mhm.
If you get what I mean, I'm butchering, but I'm saying what I'm saying.
Yeah, I
Basically.
mean, I'm thinking about that from the more intangible things to the tangible things,
Yeah.
from attitude to action. Because while I was working today, I was literally thinking to myself or reminding myself to just about having a good attitude about things. And I was like, why am I thinking so hard about that? That should literally just be something that I am just in. Not to say that I don't have feelings or I won't think about things, but just knowing, just coming with the right energy that should be something like off rip that I'm doing. So that's more like, I think, intangible because person can't see it until they do or know, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah,
Um, but as it relates to, approaching a task or something like that, then it begins to really show. So, yeah, so many different angles it comes in, but that's just one of the examples, I guess.
yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, I don't think we're too far apart, I guess, today with where we're at, because I kind of been thinking to myself lately, like, I don't know, just like checking myself, like, I mean, what are my thoughts or what is my approach or my attitude or like my response even before situations happen? Like if a situation crosses my mind, you know what I mean? Like, or I try to put myself in situations before I even get in them.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Even if I don't end up getting in that situation, I guess I find myself wanting to make sure that my attitude is in the right place. My heart is in the right place. Like, it's almost like just doing the homework. Like, homework is just like a sheet and a sheet of paper or, whatever. Nowadays, it's not no sheet of paper, but, homework, sheet of paper, you do what you need to do with that sheet of paper. And then you just kind of turn it in for a grade or you toss it to the side or ball it up and throw it out, whatever.
Mhm.
But essentially, it's still in a way, if you take that sheet of paper or that, moment seriously to like say, this is a practice run, but like I can get something out of this when it's time for the real thing or the test, you'll see who's been doing their homework.
Mhm.
So I kind of just been feeling that way about myself. Like obviously we might do things consciously, like as we spoke on last podcast, to like grow, intentionally to
Mhm.
like go about our personal growth. But this is more like I guess some similar to what I hear you saying, it's like more of a conscious effort than just like yeah, active, but it's not just me going and sitting somewhere and getting good information. It's like really digging deep down, like you said, intangible, Um, and it could be the same thing if you get it from somebody else. Like even right now, I mean, I guess in a way this is intangible, but
Mhm.
but if you get what I'm saying, I've been
I'm trying to follow.
okay. Don't put me on blast too much. I'm just saying I've been finding myself doing like the work very internally
Okay, okay.
versus like yeah, we might sit down and write things on our phone or we might talk about things with other people, but like I'm trying to put myself there in my mind, in my heart, in my soul, you know what I
Okay,
mean? Like
yeah, I follow.
and really like
Mhm.
ground myself there, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And then when I'm
exactly.
in the moment too, if a moment might come like how you had just thinking to yourself, I think what I'm saying is the same thing in essence, but I'm like it didn't just cross my mind. It's like I'm going there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But either way, because you caught the thought
Mhm.
and then you said why, you questioned it, you know what I mean? Like that is kind of doing the work in a way, but you know, I'm just saying like that's what I find myself doing. That's how it looks for me lately,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I understand the correlation now.
And I really intend to like get the most out of it. Like
Mhm.
I feel bad if I'm not making sure that I'm being better. Even before I get in that position, I want to know in my heart that I'm
Yeah,
being better.
exactly.
Like that makes
Yeah, it does. It's a really interesting concept to think about. I think it kind of falls into something I was saying yesterday. I think about how we just make things
who are you
so
saying to to
to you.
oh
How we just make things so deep, and it can get deep with all the other factors, but in essence, if we're just thinking about a concept literally in and of itself, why is it so hard for us to just take that concept and just do it or be it? Um, Instead, we hear the concept and we have to add all these other factors to it, trying to determine how we can do it or be it instead of literally just doing it or being it. It's like, so again, if I'm using an example of having a good attitude,
Mhm.
if we're adding in all the factors of maybe how people treat us or how people understand us, or it could be our external situations, it could be family, friends, work, finances, whatever the case may be. We use all of those reasons to try to say, how can I have a good attitude? Well, let's just have a good attitude. There's nothing deep about it. But
Yeah.
does
Of
that
course,
make
I got a lot to say to that as you added that last part. But yeah, yeah,
I'm
it
not
makes sense
saying
though. It makes
I'm not
sense.
saying it's
It's simple,
easy, but
but it's simple.
it is simple. The concept did nothing to us. The concept just literally said, have a good attitude.
Yeah. Well, first, I want to say if you remember that thought we had that we said would be definitely worth going further into, and we kind of put it to the side, not just for this, but I don't think we went into the thought as much as we could have, if at all, really. So if that comes to mind, I don't know if you remember, but it was something. This just made me think back to that.
Mm,
But to your point of what you're saying now, I think the last part is special though. Like you're saying relative to like or what it has to do with family or finances or whatever, like, for example, having a good attitude. But my thing is like all of those factors might affect the process. So even though if you commit to just having a good attitude, for example, or whatever the concept or the quote unquote idea is, I mean, yeah, that's the bottom line in a way. Like, do you or do you not, or did you not commit to having that or doing that, or do you have that, or do you have a good attitude, for example? But as far as considering, like, especially if you're trying to set out to do it, you might try to figure the best way to navigate. Like, I feel like some people's minds, if not everybody,
mhm,
wants to better understand how to go about it so that they can accomplish that. Not just to like make excuses, but obviously the bottom line is still the bottom line. So I agree with what you're saying because it's simple, but if somebody's deterred, not just because something is hard, but it's like if somebody comes in your face and they cuss you out every day and they looking you dead in the
Yeah.
eyes, like
Yeah.
having a good attitude, like that's kind of like how, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But of course, somebody else, they gonna be able to laugh it off and smile and be like, God bless you too. But you know, they probably have a different level of understanding maybe, or or maybe they just not making excuses and they just gonna do what they said they're gonna do. Have a good attitude.
And it could look different. It's like just because you were tired that day doesn't mean you didn't have a good attitude, right?
Of course,
Maybe
that
that's worth dissecting. But actually, as you were talking, so the point did come back to me. It was the point you were making about being committed. Um,
that correlates kind of right.
yeah, because you kept using that word commit, and that's what we were talking about, just how being committed to something is really about showing up, I think is how you put it. Um, Obviously real life is happening for everybody, and um there are real factors that, kind of hinder people maybe from going forward or showing up or doing things. But there is, I guess you were saying, like a difference between people who really know how to commit to something versus people who don't.
Mm, yeah, I do remember, and thank you for bringing that to your remembrance and to us, to everybody today, because I think that is like, I mean, you just said concept and that rung a bell, and then we're obviously talking about kind of I would say in in essence or in a sense, whichever one is right. Um, how we feel, when we first got on here, and how we're kind of dealing with our thoughts. But like all of those things, kind of, I'm not gonna say they're fluff, but they can get in the way of like commitment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I guess what I was thinking about when we were talking about it originally, or initially, I keep using these different phrases, but um, I just think there is a difference. Like, there's a difference to people that really just show up and do something because they said they were gonna do it, and like, I guess there's a difference in way they deal with the factors, like we were just speaking on, that might hinder somebody's thought process about how to go about the process. You know what I mean? Of committing to
Mhm.
do what they said they're gonna do. And like that's interesting to just look at. Like how is it that some people literally, I mean, they'll move everything to like make sure they do what they say they're gonna do.
Yeah.
And then there's literally people that like literally look at it like I can't, even after they already committed. Now, if you didn't commit to it, that's one thing, you know. But even that, like not being able to commit to something. And that could be that's a very broad term, like committing or commitment. So don't get me wrong, like I feel like there's levels to it, but there's still a bottom line. Like,
Whew. I think one of the biggest things is that it's definitely a choice. I feel like you really have to decide that um you do want to show up for that thing, for that person, for that idea.
hmm
Um and once you decide that, I guess it is a matter of really like your word. But and so without that, being that, our word is powerful and just doing what we said we were going to do is powerful. I think that's really it. And a lot of times, though, choosing not to commit, I mean, it's kind of tough because I don't want to be harsh and just be like, people do make a lot of excuses for one. And obviously, there are real factors, but I think part of that bottom line is that it is literally a choice. And you get to decide if you are or if you aren't. And I think that does literally tie back in to these concepts being so simple. And I'm not saying something comes up and you might have to move some things around to make it happen. You might have to call a couple people. I don't know what you got to do. You might even have to change the date, but the point is you said you were going to do it and you're ready to show up for that. But
yeah,
um and if you can see it through, then that's a great thing. And for others who just I don't know, find any reason to to just back out of it or delay it even. I don't know.
you're saying for others, man, like some do that,
Yeah.
while some others commit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that not just overall, but like relative to just how I don't know how we're even moved to like commit on any level. Because again, I think there's levels to it. Like, cause somebody anybody can judge anybody else's level of commitment.
For
Like
sure.
somebody can always point out and say, well, they say they're this or they said they were gonna do that, but this is all they really did, or they're not really, like that. They're not really like who
Mhm.
they say they are because and they can point out this lack of commitment, for example. So we're talking about these different concepts, but I think commitment is just like probably one of the higher levels, as far as like if you have character as the foundation, I
Mhm.
feel like commitment is probably like on the opposite end of character, like in a positive sense.
Mhm.
Like if you have character, you're gonna be able to commit on the highest level.
Yeah.
Maybe not like on day one, but you'll always be working towards building towards like what that is, what that looks like. But I just say the levels to it, I mean, are really um based on like so you said your word being like tied to commitment, but my thing is like what made you or what made anybody like have that word, if that makes sense, like, or give their word in regards to that. So we could say like, "What's your why?" kind of thing, but I don't even know that it's on that because it's like, okay, you could give your word, but does that mean you should follow through? Like, is that enough? You know what I mean? Like for
Mhm.
one person, I think they would say yes, but I feel like if you really like, why did you give your word to that though? And I feel
Right.
like if we can make that more of like the basis, then I feel like even giving or understanding the power of our words and not just even giving our word. You don't just give it. You know what I mean? Like, but you give it when you know you're supposed to give it, or when you feel most led to give it, or you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
or when it's required in a way, but not just because in some ways, like people say they're gonna do something and they do it and it looks good on the surface. But I feel like really to check somebody's commitment, you really can only do that by checking their heart. In
For
my opinion,
sure.
you can't just check somebody's level of commitment by looking at whether or not they did what they said they were gonna do. I think on the surface level, you that's the way to check it.
Mhm.
But that's why I say there's levels to it because you really only know somebody's true, you know, commitment to anything if you were to know their heart,
Yeah.
you know.
I agree, but I also think that knowing their heart even is something that I don't know if you can tell that all the time right away. I
You
feel
can't.
like it takes time for you to know.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. People, I feel like in a way, people like, or we like to judge others, but you don't always know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I guess that's kind of what I'm saying.
Mhm.
But on the other side of that is like, so how on the side of the person who's making the commitment or who has the potential to make any given commitment, like how can we go about being better at doing that, being better at going about making commitments, you know, and not just hinging it on like, all right, I got to do everything I said I'm gonna do, or I gotta, or I'm afraid to commit because it's gonna require me to now look like somebody who you said you were gonna do it, and I feel like that's what hinders some people. So if you get what I'm saying, like there's a level of like not just giving your word, but like I guess purpose or things that have meaning and value to you that would even pose the opportunity or the greatest opportunity to like bring the most out of you as far as like commitment is concerned.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if you don't have a level of character, I mean, what's purposeful, meaningful, and valuable to you might not be worth any level of commitment.
Mhm.
Or depending on what your character is, everybody has some sort of character, but good character, high character, like
Yeah. I mean, I think what you said is part of a person realizing or understanding um what it means to be committed is I guess if they can identify the purpose and know that it is something purposeful, um, I think that's a good indicator of what it means to be committed to something. Um, because obviously you can be committed to something foolish.
exactly.
So, yeah.
But if you have a level of character that is, a good and solid foundation, like I just feel like your interpretation of commitment is it's more than your word. You know what I mean? Even if we say things like, your word is everything, or your word means something, our words are powerful. Like I agree and I believe those things, just as they pertain to like the way that we use our word and we give our word to others, you know what I mean? Or for any given purpose. But it's just like, all right, if my heart is what is like leading me in any given situation, like, having the right character and I guess just letting my heart lead me to commitment is what would make it worth committing to. And then it's probably a lot harder to fail in those given situations or to have a hard time committing in those situations. That makes sense.
Kind of.
Versus just like making like not because business is bad, but let's just say with business, like in business, people just make commitments all the time that they don't follow through with.
Yeah.
In friendship or relationship, people make commitments all the time that they don't follow through with.
Mhm.
Financially, people make commitments all the time they don't follow through with. Like,
Yeah.
you know, but you can yawn.
I did.
Um, but what about the things that we're truly like passionate about? Do we even give ourselves a chance as often in those areas to make commitments in those areas? And if we did, how often would we not stick to it? I mean, I think a lot of people probably don't, but how many people are really committing to like what they're truly led by in their heart, not just like surface stuff?
Yeah. How many people? I don't know, but to that point, um, I do agree with that because I don't know. I mean, when you truly move with purpose and power, I mean, you don't just go with the flow. Like, you have an agenda for yourself. So, I feel like you're better able to, again, understand where or why you're committed to something or why you're doing something. So, that takes precedence over all the extra stuff.
Yeah,
Not that you can't do the extra stuff, but you do recognize and realize that, like, first things first.
yeah,
And to your point, it does
Mhm.
continue to, lead you.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah. Anyway, I mean, yeah, that's I guess as far as any concept is concerned, commitment or having a good attitude, like I don't know. I feel like if your heart is quote unquote in the right place, I mean, shouldn't it should simplify those
Mhm.
concepts, I guess, and allow us to like take steps in those directions a lot more smoothly, even when met with adversity, because we know deep down like that's who we are, that's who we want to be, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah, you said the word adversity and I was thinking about fear cuz I was thinking along the lines of yeah, if you're not scared to, you know, say no to those things that you know you don't need to commit to that right now.
Hmm.
Um because I think that's part of it too. Like people be scared to say they're not doing that right now or not today even. Um or I need a moment, just kind of just the language of boundaries. Um being able to express those things or say those things without just the fear of like what other people think or have to say, so that you can do what you got to do and um still make time if necessary for all the other things as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
But so just again in conjunction with what you used the word adversity, um I think that's also a good word too because adversity does, in terms of what we're talking about, slow down a lot of people or stop people from being committed to something that they know in their heart they should be committed to, but they are allowing those external factors to hinder them.
yeah. It brings me to that brings me to the saying or the scripture that says essentially paraphrasing, but like to be in the world or that, we're in the world but not of it. It's like
Hmm.
adversity. In my mind, adversity is the world. So of course, everybody is hindered. Everybody is,
Yeah.
in fear or has fears. Everybody meets or is met with um, obstacles and boundaries, good and bad. You know what I mean? Like you can have good boundaries, but you can also have boundaries that that limit you. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So anyway, I'm just saying all that to say, but like to have the mindset of like simple, quote unquote, simple concept. Um, like what makes it simple is to just simplify it and say like, yeah, we just have a good attitude. Let me just. That's like not of the world. You know what I mean? Like to not be of the world is to be able to for these concepts to be simple and to just live that and be
Great.
that. Not too loud because we have.
That was good. I really wanted to clap that last time, but I just had to clap for that one.
You can clap. Just keep in mind people got headphones in. But I'm just saying. So yeah, that made an instant connection in my mind. Just like the world is adversity. So to like even act like adversity ain't about to be a thing is ever. It's like no, you're gonna have adversity. But yeah, I mean,
And that's exactly my point. It's it's like, why are we making it so complicated?
because we're in the world though. That's why some people are not able to make that separation, like because they're in the world, like that is their reality, and
That's
essentially
true.
it's all of our reality. But but to know that we're not of this, like this is not what we're made to be or to experience, except that we are here to it. To it is part of the experience, but it's really like the fluff. Like the world did this, and I don't want to go too far off track, but the world did this, like, but we're not of the world, so we don't. We got to be constantly reminded, like, yeah, that's the world though. Like, so even though I'm here, even though I might experience it or rub shoulders or bump elbows or whatever with it, like, I got to be reminded, like, I'm. Let me simplify this for myself again, as you put it, and let me keep to these concepts, you know,
Mhm.
of having a good attitude, being able to commit to things that are my heart is moved to do, and so on and so forth, whatever those things might be. But
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, that's true because a lot of things have or are normalized. So I do agree.
and then there's the excuses as a result that
Absolutely.
come in the form of very good reason, but
Yeah.
you gave yourself the excuse. But in reality,
Wow. Are excuses just good reasons?
I think I'm coming to realize that being a good friend kind of
Because it's
put that in
like, it
perspective. But
doesn't mean it's invalid. It's not an invalid factor. It's obviously real. It like the factor exists. So we can't invalidate that, reason that a person gives.
it depends on if it really exists. Does it really exist? I mean, because when you say good reasons, but it's like if the minute it becomes an excuse, I would say it's no longer valid though.
Hmm.
Like we have this term excused, like we excuse things, but that's because we excuse them. But it's still an excuse. It's not like that needs to be excused as a reason why you can't, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, it's a good reason, but it's actually an excuse. So you need to put that to the side and keep going.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. I'm gonna have to sit with that for a second while I get this um other thought out because you mentioned adversity and I think I was thinking about this 10 minutes ago. But change,
hmm
it's funny because
simple concept,
w-
right?
change,
Yeah. Or a concept that can be made simple.
absolutely. And but with change, I was just thinking how wow, when you think about something changing, especially when you know you want something to change for the better,
hmm
you start to, we start to curate this fantasy in our minds about how smooth things are going to be
hmm
after we make this change.
Yeah.
But then there's that whole, it really didn't dawn on me, but just a whole period where before that fantasy, I guess, really becomes a reality,
hmm
there is like adversity right there. for that change to happen, it's like you gotta go a little harder. You experience some resistance
Mhm.
because you're thinking like, "Oh, I'm just gonna decide to make this change and it's gonna be smooth in 24 hours."
Mhm.
But in reality, like that change accompanies part of that adversity. And I think that is literally where we have to find, um,
Or that. Yeah, I'm listening. I'm listening.
say it.
No, I'm just thinking through what you're saying. I was just saying, I was gonna say, or that adversity accompanies part of that change, because how you say that definitely matters. So I'm just thinking like which one makes sense. But now I'm listening. I'm listening.
But yeah, I mean, in the adversity is where we do have to find,
Mhm.
um, literally have to find out how to be, because it's almost like that smooth period that we're waiting for when we
Mhm.
decide that we're going to make this change, or even decide to commit to something that may take a lot of our time,
Mhm.
take a lot of our energy, challenge our mental, challenge our emotional, um, well-being and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
we looking for that smooth period, but if we can find that in that, uh,
And the adversity in the midst of it.
yeah, then
If we can find a way to be at ease or at peace, you're saying, in the midst of adversity, then
basically,
when the smooth period comes, we can really get to it.
I mean, literally, like instead of it, because oftentimes we're like, okay, I want to change and I want to do something different,
Mhm.
and we're even saying that with a lot of pressure on our back, like, oh my gosh, like I just like this thing has to change.
Mhm.
Then not realizing, okay, that's fine. We made the change. We decided, we made a decision. And now look at even what the decision comes with.
Mhm.
The decision still comes with, um, again, just some form of adversity before you can even experience what you say you want or what you're even looking for.
Yeah.
And so as it ties into the just being committed through that whole process and being intentional and literally finding out like how to be, how to how you can live for real, how not to make those excuses, how to show up and really hold on to your purpose or the purpose in that
This
is,
is a long sentence.
I know, I don't even know if it's a sentence, it's
Nah,
a
I'm messing with you.
paragraph, but if you get what I'm saying.
Nah, not the whole thing. I get what you're saying. I think that last part was one sentence though.
I was just trying to get it out.
But yeah, but I mean, I think I hear what you're just saying is like the adversity being, I mean, it's like a test. And if you can pass that test, the earlier that you're able to like realize that, I mean, the more it probably will play to your benefit in the long run. Like with you being able to really maneuver and continue to see, I guess, the change that you saw before you ever hit the adversity. And like not actually seeing a change, but the change that you desire to see.
Yeah, because that's where the good reasons start coming in.
Yeah.
Like everything's all smooth. We're like, okay, let's make a decision to do this.
Yeah. Good reasons, aka excuse.
And exactly.
Yeah.
And then now here come all of those reasons. Sorry, I forgot to call because, or oh, I didn't show up
Yeah.
because, and it's like, okay.
I mean, so to your point though, going back, you said something about having boundaries, saying no or whatever, like that, those things, whatever form they might come in, those boundaries, like, I mean, so I could ask a question or I could just say what I'm thinking, but essentially, I guess in question form, and you can answer it, but it's like, so our boundaries, necessary. I think we know the answer, at some level, obviously, but do boundaries, I guess at what point like should you start developing or, you know, coming back to the table to see like, okay, maybe I had these boundaries, but I need to like further implement them, or I need, you know what I mean? Like at what point along the way, like should you implement these boundaries before you set out for change? Or like once you hit adversity, is it too late then, or is that the perfect time because now you kind of see what might come with it? You know what I mean? And how does that, I guess it's like three questions. And then how does that affect somebody's outcome or success of being able to like reach that desired level of change or sustain that, you know, change in a positive sense?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's any particular order. I mean, obviously, in the beginning, it's good to know that if you know you have a problem getting up early, then take your butt to sleep.
Hmm.
Like, that's a boundary that starts with yourself, even. And somebody might argue that's just having discipline,
Yeah.
but it could be a boundary for yourself, or maybe not, because I don't want to confuse it too.
It could be a
But
boundary because there's a boundary could be like you don't get on your phone late. You don't, you know what I mean? Because then you'll allow, or you don't take phone calls late because you don't want to cause yourself to stay up later than what your bedtime is.
hmm
Like,
yeah, so
it takes discipline to implement boundaries. They go hand in hand.
okay, yeah, I like how you put that. So yeah. But yeah, I mean, obviously it does start with ourselves. So putting those boundaries in place, in the beginning, especially, and as I guess, as all the other factors start to roll in, you may have to adjust. I feel like may have to adjust them, and or you really start to see where or how to implement those boundaries.
Hmm.
Um, because I think some you kind of automatically know, especially when you are desiring some sort of change.
Yeah,
And some of them may not be
that's
so
true.
clear until you actually get
That's
into
true.
the action of doing the thing. So I think it's a matter of definitely being sensitive to like your own journey and your own process to know when and how you got to set those boundaries, because I guess you do have to determine what's important to you first,
Hmm.
and go about it that way, which may look different for everybody. And then you kind of you go from there. And you also have to believe in it, because as far as what that timetable looks like, I don't know, if you're not good at being consistent, it might take you some time to develop some consistency, um before you can see success in a thing.
Yeah,
And that's literally contingent upon you. Like, that's not contingent on nobody. So um yeah, I think it may come with a lot of learning curves, but I think boundaries can be implemented, they can be adjusted and even removed as necessary.
yeah, yeah. I agree. Um, I think I will say I think they have to be implemented early on, like very early on. And I say have to. I think it's best to. It's most ideal. But whenever they come is when they should come. Like if they implement it late, but it helps, works,
Mm,
cool. But if you do it super early, I feel like that's where you'll find the most success. And super early just meaning it's never too late for anybody. Like anybody listening or even for us, like it don't matter when. Like just do it when you know to do it. But at the same time, I just mean on this journey, like when you embark upon like a specific
mhm,
desiring something to change or changing your surroundings or, maybe your financial position or current.
Mhm.
place of, where you are in the midst of your relationships or whatever, like, but early on will help you to like sustain and probably gain the most momentum to like go forward with that. If you implement those boundaries very early on, and then if anything does come to you early on following having implemented those boundaries, like now to add things or take them away, as you said, to remove the boundaries, even it won't be hard to do that as hard. But
Yeah.
if you don't implement them early on, then you're like, whoa, I can't, or I need to not, whatever. Like now you got to do the work to do that. And you
Mhm.
can't focus on just like whatever that change is, you know. But if the boundary's already in place, it's kind of like, a seatbelt. Like, God forbid, even if it's just a little fender bender, like you're not thinking about, hitting the fire hydrant and then you got to grab onto the handle to not fly out the window. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
and, you know, fly into the grass and you be straight and dust off. But you know what I'm saying? Like, seatbelt is a boundary.
Yeah.
So if you hit the fender, I mean, if you hit the fire hydrant or whatever, like the seatbelt got you. You had that boundary.
Mhm.
It's like that. So it could be very small things, but even a small thing, like even having a bumper on a car, because we have a bumper, yeah, it might look ugly if you hit that bumper and you got to ride around with that, but you saved your radiator or coolant, or whatever pipes or that's protected by the bumper from being like your car. You worried about what the exterior looked like. That thing wouldn't move, or you'd be in there with no AC, or your car would be leaking. So it's like in that same sense, like we can continue to move the vehicle forward with these boundaries, and we can change as desired. So
Yeah. I think knowing how to set the boundaries early on falls into what we talked about last week. We're talking about kind of taking account and making that grocery list
mhm.
of things because I feel like some people starting off, you may not even know what boundaries they gotta set for real.
Yeah,
But by remotely knowing what desire it is that they have, as they start to do the desire or, get into the thing, then they can start to see where they should incorporate those boundaries. Because some people might think, let me start doing it or let me start on this, whatever it is I'm going to do. And they might be used to, I don't know, calling their friends every night or something like that. And they think they might can do both, but it's not until they do it till they're like, they still call their friends and stuff, but they just find a better time to do it. Like they
yeah.
might not they might not even known about themselves that they can't necessarily get nothing done by doing that. And that's something they learn to implement as they get into what they're doing. And as they get better at what they're doing, that's again where readjusting those boundaries can come in because now they know like, oh, I can knock this out and I can call my friends.
But I mean, I feel like it's a whole nother conversation, because if that person really has an issue with not being able to get stuff done because of that, like, ain't no boundary about to change that, in my opinion. Like, not saying never, but I'm saying like they would need to. That's probably a change journey in and of itself. But by setting that boundary and realizing like what it is, that might help them to realize like, okay, that's something I need to work on too.
Yeah.
Like, so not to say it won't help at all. I'm exaggerating, but yeah, I get what you're saying. But if that's really them, they're not just about to be like, look, I got stuff to get done and get off the phone. Like some people maybe can, but other people, I feel like, there are those who they're not, like they say. Some people cold turkey, other people are not cold
Yeah.
turkey.
Yeah, exactly.
But as long as you get there, it don't really matter. To your point. So at least setting a boundary, I feel like that's part of doing the work in a sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, we think we doing some work ourselves tonight. So I don't know what really, man, what we say, commitment, having a good attitude, Um, what else we got?
Being intentional, setting boundaries, obviously.
hmm
Um,
Simplifying things in a way, not just any and everything, but especially the things that we truly, I would say, believe in or that are truly in our heart to
yeah.
do, because then we're able to set boundaries, we're able to commit, we're able to have a good attitude. Like if we don't
hmm
let adversity affect that.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that because I was gonna make sure we got that in. Um, the adversity factor and how that correlates with the world. Um, so not letting those things again affect.
The fact that we're in the world, but not of it.
Yeah.
Just had to throw that in there. I think it simplifies it though. When you started speaking on adversity, it made me really think about like adversity really is literally and metaphorically like the world. So
Yeah.
if we realize like even us, we're one person out of the whole world. People. That's a simple number. So if we simplify it and say, you know what, I'm just going. I know it's crazy happening out here, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna be, you know, a beacon of light. Like that simplifies it. I don't
Yeah.
mean it's gonna be easy, but I feel like it does make it more doable.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So, well, it is a late night tonight. I need some water. But other than that,
All right. Well, I guess I'll just leave y'all with something because I think we slightly touched on things being normalized out here. So I just want to say don't let society stop you from doing the things that you know you want to do, need to do, or even have to do. Um, because you don't have to do things the way other people do them. You don't have to have the same perspectives about things that people have about stuff. You can literally think for yourself. You can literally have a good attitude about things that people don't have a good attitude about. Um, so just we really just encourage y'all to be yourselves and embrace your unique journey and your unique process. And again, don't let society stop you or, hinder you from being that. There's, nothing wrong about who you are or your unique experience at all. So just learning to embrace those things and continue to get better, as a person.
true. Keep your heart in the right place. SBS.
That's BS.
All
I ain't know
right,
what to
peace
say.
and love.
Peace
And love, you gonna say that?
and
All
love.
right, all right, all right. Yeah, have a good night.
Good night.